Debbie Gray, and I'm about to go ahead and do a vaginal smear cytology. So the only things we need for this are a swab and some saline. So I'm just going to put some saline on the swab. And we're going to use Dixie here. Dixie is sedated for surgery. Okay, so her vagina here, we want to make sure that we get right in here. And I'm going to swab around. And the whole point of this is to see where we are in the heat cycle, pretty much. Okay.
Wow, that's great.
Okay. Okay, so now that we have our vaginal swab, I'm going to roll it in single layers on this slide. Okay, we'll let it air dry for a minute. Just gonna wave it gently in the air. Okay, so now we're gonna stain it. Okay, so I have my different stains here. I'm gonna do 30 for the alcohol, 15 for the other two. Okay. Grab a paper towel. Just gonna let it dry on here. Okay, so now I'm just gonna get my paper book here, and I'm going to put the slide in here, and this dries it. I'm just gonna press gently. This just gets all the excess off of it. Okay, now we have a good dry stained sample. So I'm gonna first look at this under 10x. Got some cells here. Very good example, so I'm going to go on down to 40x. I've lost it. good example of a cell, but now I can't find it. Okay, here we go. So the cells are round. They're not cornified at all. So the stage of estrus I'm seeing right now is called diestrus. They're nucleated round cells. This is the stage that follows estrus. The female is no longer receptive to the male at this point, and the estrogen levels are low. These are called parabasal cells. And so now I'm going to go to the oil magnification at 100 and look at them here. These are some really good examples of parabasal cells. They're very round and you can see the nucleus really well. Okay, so real quick, we're going to talk about the different types of cells seen in vaginal smears, and we're going to discuss the predominant cells seen during the different stages of the estrus cycle. So, first stage of the estrus cycle is an estrus. There's no physical changes. It does not attract or accept males. The female does not. We're shown intermediate or parabasal cells, neutrophils, and bacteria. Next stage would be proestrus, swollen vulva, bloody discharge. The female attracts but will not accept the male. So early, we're seeing non-cornified squamous epithelial cells, neutrophils and erythrocytes, and bacteria. And then late, there's superficial intermediate cells and cornified epithelial cells. Lower neutrophils, higher erythrocytes, and bacteria. Next stage would be estrus, swollen vulva, and pinkish to straw-colored discharge. This is when the female does begin accepting the male. Early 90% cornified squamous epithelial cells, superficial intermediate cells, erythrocytes, and bacteria. Late would be more neutrophils and less erythrocytes and bacteria. Last but not least, we have metastrus or diestrus. I prefer to call it diestrus. Vulvular swelling and discharge, and they no longer accept the male. We have the cornified squamous epithelial cells, cytologic debris. Late, we have intermediate and parabasal cells, and neutrophils and erythrocytes. So let's talk about the cells themselves for a minute. Okay, this is an intermediate cell and a parabasal cell. So you can see here, see, the big arrow is the intermediate cell and the thin arrow is the parabasal cell. Parabasal cell is what we actually saw in our vaginal smear. It's very round, very easy to pick out. Okay. Next we have a superficial intermediate cell with bacteria. You can see all the little bacteria around the cell. These are more cornified looking cells. You can see that they're definitely not rounded. We go down here, and our big arrow is pointing to the superficial intermediate cell with phenotic nucleus, and the thin area is showing the intermediate cell. Okay, so this one's really cornified. You see the bacteria around it, whereas this one is much more rounded, very round nucleus as well. Okay, and here we have our superficial cell with folded angular cytoplasm on the left side, and the cornified anuclear superficial cell on the right. Okay, this one is indicative of estrus. So this is showing when we're ready to be bred. You see all the bacteria there and how cornified these cells are, and that's how we know that the female is ready to be bred. Okay, so we're gonna film our fecal direct smear. I have a slide here. I'm going to place a drop of saline onto the slide. And then I have a little bit of feces. And what I'm gonna do is mix it up in here. Mix it really well. So you want it good and thin. Okay. So this isn't thin enough, so I'm actually going to add a little bit more saline to this. So that's much better. Make a really thin layer, and then I'm going to get a cover slip. I'm going to place a cover slip on the slide. Okay. Alright, now we're going to come over here. Okay, and I'm not seeing anything in this smear, so it is negative. Okay, so now that we have read the direct fecal smear, we're just going to record the results in the computer. So I'm under the animal. We're using Avamark here. We have a fecal direct smear. I'm going to timestamp it with my initials and put the smear was negative. So now that we have that in the computer, so when we go back and look at it, we can see what we've done and we can see what the result was.